In the heart of the planet, hidden among jungles, mountains, and deserts, exist flowers so strange they seem invented by a dream. They aren't found in common gardens or standard botany catalogs. They are living jewels that defy time, climate, and even logic. Some smell like chocolate, others bloom for just one night, and one of them, the most mysterious of all, is born in a place no one dares to reveal. Get ready to discover the 15 rarest and most beautiful flowers in the world, where beauty and mystery bloom at the same time. Number 1. The corpse flower, Amorphophallus titanum. Indonesia, deep within the tropical rainforests of Sumatra. Indonesia emerges a flower so colossal and mysterious it seems plucked from nature's nightmare. It is known as the corpse flower, and its name is no poetic metaphor. When it blooms, the air is saturated with an unbearable smell of rotting flesh. However, this apparent monstrosity hides a master strategy, a survival tactic that has made it one of the strangest wonders of the plant kingdom. The Amorphophallus titanum can reach 3 meters in height and weigh over 100 kilos. It is the largest individual flower on the planet, a living structure that rises from the ground like a reddish torch wrapped in a greenish layer. But what is most impressive is not its size, but its way of cheating evolution. While most flowers attract bees or butterflies with sweet perfumes, this one chooses the opposite path, that of decomposition. During the few days its bloom lasts, sometimes only 48 hours, it releases a cloud of chemical compounds that perfectly mimic the stench of a dead animal. Carrion flies and scavenging beetles flock en masse, convinced they will find a feast. Instead, they become involuntary messengers of pollen, an olfactory trap that has worked for thousands of years. The curious thing is that its blooming is so unpredictable that even in the world's most prestigious botanical gardens, it is celebrated as an extraordinary event. Scientists can wait up to a decade to see a single flower open. And when it does, cameras, onlookers, and researchers gather around it as if it were a vegetable movie star. Nature, at times, has a strange sense of spectacle. Furthermore, its life is full of contrasts. After blooming, the plant quickly withers, as if all its effort were concentrated in that brief act of exhibition. Then, the corm, a gigantic subterranean organ, enters dormancy for months or even years. In that silence underground, it accumulates energy until it decides, once again, to defy the world with its grotesque and majestic presence. But behind this marvel also lurks a risk. The corpse flower is endangered due to the loss of its natural habitat. The tropical forests of Sumatra have been logged at an alarming rate, and with them disappear the exact conditions it needs to survive. It is a species so delicate that it depends on the balance of temperature, humidity, and soil that only its original environment can offer. In captivity, reproducing that balance is a monumental challenge. Paradoxically, that same repulsive smell that provokes grimaces of disgust in visitors is, for scientists, one of the keys to understanding its evolutionary success. Sulfur compounds, amines, and aldehydes, the same molecules produced by a decomposing body, are mixed in the air. A perfect chemical camouflage. Nothing about the corpse flower is accidental. Every molecule of its perfume, every fold of its reddish spathe, every purple glint under the light serves an exact purpose. And so, between astonishment and revulsion, the corpse flower reminds us that beauty is not always found in the pleasant. Sometimes it dwells in the strange, the grotesque, in what most would prefer not to look at. However, there, in that apparent horror, lies one of the most fascinating stories of the natural world. That of a flower that smells of death, but lives to perpetuate life. 2. The ghost orchid, Dendrophylax lindeni, Florida and Cuba. And as the stench of the corpse flower fades into the tropical humidity, the story leads us toward another botanical mystery, a much quieter, almost invisible one. In the swamps of southern Florida and the humid forests of Cuba lives a flower that looks like a mirage, the ghost orchid. Its name couldn't be more appropriate. At first glance, one sees nothing but air. There is no stem, no leaves, no roots to betray its presence. Only when the light filters through the trees and the still wind of the swamp stops can it be discovered suspended among the branches. A delicate white flower that seems to float, as if the forest were dreaming it. Its shape recalls a small winged creature, a butterfly paused in mid-flight, or perhaps a vegetable soul suspended between water and sky. The Dendrophylax lindeni lives attached to the trunks of trees, but does not truly touch them. It neither sinks roots into the earth nor absorbs water like other plants. Instead, it survives thanks to an extraordinary symbiosis with a microscopic fungus that lives inside it. It is a relationship so precise and delicate that without it, the plant simply cannot exist. The fungus provides the nutrients that air and light cannot give, and in return, the orchid offers its shelter in its tissue. There is no dominance, no parasitism, just an alliance so balanced it seems the work of an invisible mind. Any alteration of the environment, a slight variation in humidity, a minimal drop in temperature, a ray of sun at the wrong moment, can break that balance and condemn it. That fragility is, paradoxically, its strength. It has survived thousands of years in a changing environment, hiding where few eyes can see it. Its rarity is not accidental, it is a strategy. The more invisible, the more protected it is. That's why botanists who seek it must move stealthily, almost in reverence, so as not to disturb the delicate microclimate that keeps it alive. But the most amazing thing about this flower is its method of reproduction, a marvel of evolutionary precision. The ghost orchid depends on a very particular night moth, the Darwin's sphinx moth. Its tongue, as long as its own body, is the only one capable of reaching the nectar hidden deep within the flower. No other insect in the world can do it. It is a relationship so exact that it seems designed, a choreography between plant and pollinator that has lasted millions of years. On the quietest nights, when the mist covers the mangroves and the air becomes still, the flowers open. A faint, almost imperceptible perfume emanates from them, traveling through the moisture of the forest and guiding the moths from afar. Then the miracle happens. The moth, attracted by that invisible thread of aroma, lands on the flower. As it drinks its nectar, unknowingly, it collects the pollen and carries it to another distant flower. It is a fleeting instant, a minute gesture, but in it, the complete life cycle of the ghost orchid is fulfilled. At dawn, the flowers close, the mist returns, and everything disappears. Only silence remains, as if nothing had happened. Its rarity has made it an object of desire for collectors and botanists worldwide. But almost no one manages to cultivate it successfully. Attempts in greenhouses fail repeatedly. Without its symbiotic fungus, and without its pollinating moth, the flower simply fades. It doesn't wither, it vanishes. Therefore, every wild specimen is a living jewel, a reminder of how fragile the natural balance is when forced. Unlike the corpse flower, which imposes its presence with size and smell, the ghost orchid captivates with the opposite, with its invisibility. It is the flower of the intangible, the one that exists right on the boundary between the real and the ethereal. Science studies it as an evolutionary rarity, but local inhabitants revere it as a symbol of what cannot be possessed. They say that whoever manages to see it bloom on a summer night will have good fortune, although no one dares to cut it. Perhaps because they intuit that tearing it off would be like breaking a spell. And so, while the corpse flower screams its presence with the smell of death, the ghost orchid whispers life in silence, floating in the fog, invisible to almost everyone. Two extremes of the same miracle, the infinite creativity of nature, capable of creating both the clamor of decay and the poetry of the air. 3. The jade vine, Strongylodan macrobotries, Philippines. After following the invisible trail of the ghost orchid, nature changes register and plunges us into a world of impossible color. In the depths of the tropical jungles of the Philippines, where humidity forms a bluish haze among the trees, a plant that seems made of liquid light blooms, the jade vine. Its clusters of flowers hang like turquoise waterfalls that gleam even in the twilight. At first glance, they look like jewels carved by divine hands, but they are real, living flowers suspended from vines that can reach up to 20 meters long. In the language of the forest, this species is pure spectacle. The Strongylodon macrobotris does not only surprise with its color, its history is a lesson in the secret alliances of the plant kingdom. Unlike diurnal flowers that court bees or butterflies, this flower entrusts its destiny to creatures of the night, bats. Yes, those same animals that many fear are the nocturnal gardeners of the jungle. As they hang upside down to drink its nectar, their bodies are impregnated with pollen, and unknowingly, they become the messengers that perpetuate the species. The fascinating thing is that the flower seems to have been designed for them. Its curved claw shape fits perfectly with the way bats feed. And its turquoise tone, so uncommon in the plant world, has a practical function. It reflects the light of the moon and the bioluminescence of certain insects, guiding the pollinators through the shadows. It is literally a flower that shines in the dark. However, that same specialization that makes it so extraordinary also makes it vulnerable. Indiscriminate logging and the loss of pollinating bats have drastically reduced its presence in nature. In some places, the clusters that once hung like celestial curtains have become memories. Therefore, every recorded flowering in its natural environment is a celebration, a reminder of what can still be saved. In the botanical gardens of Manila and London, where some specimens have been successfully cultivated, visitors often fall silent before it. Not because it commands respect, but because its color defies logic. The human eye is not accustomed to seeing such an intense, pure, greenish blue, so outside the usual spectrum of flowers. Some scientists call it the impossible color, a hue that seems to come from another world. And, in a way, it is. The jade vine is a bridge between day and night, between the visible and the hidden. Where the corpse flower dominates with its gigantism, and the ghost orchid seduces with its invisibility, this plant celebrates color as an act of resistance. In the midst of the darkness of the jungle, it chooses to shine. They say that under a full moon, when the bats flutter among the trees and the turquoise clusters sway like living lanterns, the forest seems to breathe differently. It is the instant when beauty and rarity mingle, and life once again reveals its most unexpected facet. 4. The black bat flower, Taca chantrieri, Southeast Asia. When the turquoise light of the jade vine fades among the trees, the Southeast Asian jungle is covered in shadows. And it is precisely there, in that humid, silent gloom, that a flower emerges that looks alive, even though it isn't. It is known as the black bat flower, and its appearance is so unsettling that many believe they are seeing a nocturnal creature instead of a plant. Its petals, a deep black with purple reflections, open like the wings of an animal at rest. Long, thin strands, almost like whiskers or filaments, are born from its center, hanging in the air and moving with the rhythm of the breeze. Therefore, when one approaches, it gives the sensation that the flower is breathing. It's an illusion, of course, but one so convincing that it's hard to look away. The Taca chantrieri has been the subject of legends for centuries. In some villages in Thailand and Malaysia, it is said to grow in places where the forest spirits rest. Others assure that whoever picks it provokes the wrath of the night gods. And although science doesn't credit the myths, it does recognize that this plant has something profoundly unusual. A design that seems intended for the theater of darkness. Unlike most flowers, which strive to stand out with bright colors, this one chose black. A tone that doesn't attract the human eye, but does attract the insects that thrive in the shadows. Its color and shape are believed to mimic certain dark fungi and fruits, thus attracting flies and small nocturnal pollinators. It is a perfectly calculated vegetable disguise. Furthermore, its structure is a marvel of natural engineering. The velvety petals repel the humidity of the jungle, preventing the growth of fungi, while the long beards help disperse the pollen with the wind and the brush of insects. Everything about it seems to have a purpose, although its appearance seems taken from a Gothic dream. In botanical gardens around the world, the black bat flower is usually one of the most observed, and at the same time, least understood. Some visitors feel fascination, others unease. Its rarity defies the classic idea of beauty. There are no cheerful colors, no sweet perfumes, no gentle shapes. Only a dark, hypnotic elegance that seems self-aware. Curiously, under certain light conditions, its petals reflect a barely perceptible silver sheen, as if hiding a layer of metal beneath the surface. It is that contrast between the opaque and the bright, the serene and the unsettling, that makes it one of the most photogenic flowers on the planet. A living paradox, darkness turned into natural art. And so, while the bats pollinate the jade vine with their light flight, this flower seems to observe them from the shadow, motionless yet attentive. Both share the night, but in different ways. One illuminates, the other hides. In the immense repertoire of nature, the black bat flower is a reminder that beauty does not always shine. Sometimes it simply lurks in the shadows. Saith the 5. The chocolate flower, Cosmos atrasanguineus, Mexico. After the dark mystery of the black bat flower, the journey takes us far from the Asian jungles toward the warm, dry heart of Mexico. There, among sun-gilded meadows, blooms one of the most melancholy jewels of the plant world, the chocolate flower. Its name sounds like temptation, and it's not accidental. Upon approaching, the air fills with a sweet, unmistakable aroma. It smells exactly like cocoa. It is a natural perfume that doesn't deceive the sense of smell, a fragrance that awakens memories and hunger at the same time. But beyond its charm, this flower holds a story that mixes beauty, extinction, and hope. The Cosmos atrasanguineus displays a dark red color, so deep that in the evening light it looks brown. Its velvety petals absorb the sun as if drinking fire, and its almost black center stands out with a mysterious glow. It is a simple flower, yes, but its elegance comes from its rarity. There is no other like it in all the American continent. For centuries it grew freely in the fields of central Mexico, accompanied by the wind and the song of insects. However, human expansion, climate change, and habitat loss slowly pushed it toward oblivion. By the early 20th century, botanists confirmed the unthinkable. The chocolate flower had completely disappeared from nature. Only a few cultivated specimens remained in European gardens. And then something extraordinary happened. Scientists discovered that all the flowers that exist today are exact descendants of a single plant. In other words, every chocolate flower cultivated in the world is a clone. The entire species, multiplied artificially, survives thanks to human intervention. It is as if nature had been suspended in a single living copy, repeated again and again. Even so, the flower has not lost its charm. Its aroma remains as delicious as ever, and its color as hypnotic. On hot days, it gives off a more intense perfume, as if trying to compensate for its genetic solitude with exuberance. Gardeners who cultivate it say it blooms better when cared for in silence, without moving it too much, without disturbing it. Perhaps because its fragility is also its legacy. It is curious that a flower extinct in nature has survived, thanks to the human desire to preserve its beauty. Without clones, it would no longer exist. However, by cloning it, we have created a paradox. Millions of flowers, but only one identity. The last true flower remains alive, infinitely multiplied, but without history, without natural lineage. In that sense, the chocolate flower is not only a botanical gem, but a metaphor for time. All that was once ephemeral, preserved in a single fragment. Its perfume reminds us that memory can also bloom, even when the original life is gone. Thus, between the sweet aroma of cocoa and the echo of what was lost, the chocolate flower continues to captivate hearts. Not only for its beauty, but because it represents the thin line between extinction and persistence. In it, nature and humanity meet in a silent pact to keep a spark alive that would have otherwise been extinguished forever. 6. The Kokia, Kokia, Hawaii. From the dry fields of Mexico, where the cocoa perfume still floats in the air, the journey continues toward the heart of the Pacific. There, on the volcanic islands of Hawaii, life flourishes between fire and sea. It is an archipelago where nature seems to invent itself every day, and among its most fragile treasures is a flower that was on the verge of disappearing forever. the Kokia. Its scientific name, Kokia kuke, barely says anything about its rarity. But in Hawaii, this flower is pronounced with reverence. For centuries it grew on the dry slopes of Molokai, a landscape of reddish rocks and salty breezes. However, the arrival of foreign animals and human expansion erased its trace. By the year 1950, it was officially declared extinct. And then, the story changed. A local horticulturist, almost by accident, found an old sick tree with a few red flowers. He managed to take some cuttings, living fragments of the trunk, and with them resuscitated an entire species. Today, all the Kokia on the planet descend from that single tree. Every red flower that opens is a silent witness to that second chance. Its petals, a fiery red, almost incandescent, seem made of the same fire that formed the islands. Unlike other tropical flowers that seek exuberant brightness, the Kokia radiates a contained intensity, like a flame that does not go out. In Hawaiian culture, its color symbolizes the blood of the earth, the sacred link between man and nature. But beyond its beauty, the Kokia represents a victory against oblivion. Its survival is the direct result of human patience and devotion. Scientists had to graft its cuttings onto the roots of other species to keep it alive, a meticulous work that took decades. Today, there are fewer than 30 specimens, all cared for with an almost religious zeal. Every flowering of the Kokia is celebrated as an event, not for its size or its rarity, but for what it means. That life, even when it seems lost, can be reborn. In a way, it is the sister flower of the chocolate flower. Both share a similar destiny, extinct in nature, but sustained by human hands. However, while one survives as a clone, the Kokia persists as a symbol of hope, a bridge between the past and the future. Hawaiian gardeners often say that this flower has memory of the fire, perhaps because it grows in soils formed by ancient lava, or maybe because its history bears the mark of resistance. Be that as it may, when its red petals open to the sun, they seem to remind us that the irreplaceable can be preserved, if protected in time. Thus, in the blue immensity of the Pacific, surrounded by dormant volcanoes and infinite oceans, the Kokia blooms in silence. It needs neither perfume nor ornament. Its presence is enough. It is the flower that defeated extinction, a living testament to the human effort not to lose what nature had already given up on. 7. The bird of paradise flower, Strelitzia reginae, South Africa. After the fiery red of the Kokia, the story travels to the southern tip of the African continent, where the land opens to the ocean, and the wind sculpts landscapes of rock and sand. In that luminous setting, among temperate hills and salty breezes, blooms one of evolution's most recognizable masterpieces, the bird of paradise flower. Its scientific name, Strelitzia reginae, might sound solemn, but its appearance is pure joy. Its orange and blue petals open in the shape of wings, recalling the paused flight of an exotic bird. It is a flower that doesn't just exist. It seems to move even when the air is still. Nature, in its infinite creativity, designed this species with the precision of a choreographer. Each flower becomes a small platform where birds, especially sunbirds, the African hummingbirds, land to feed on its nectar. As they do so, the weight of their feet triggers a hidden mechanism that releases the pollen. It is a millimetric dance between plant and animal, an evolutionary choreography so perfect that it seems rehearsed. But beyond its elegance, the bird of paradise flower represents a powerful idea: cooperation. Unlike the fierce competition that often reigns in nature, everything here is based on harmony. The plant offers food, the bird transports life. Both thrive together, repeating the dance generation after generation. The most curious thing is that the Strelitzia not only adapted to birds, but also to the wind and the light. Its shape is designed to withstand the gusts of the South African climate, while its iridescent color reflects sunlight with a metallic sheen that attracts pollinators from a distance. Every petal, every line of its structure, serves a functional purpose. Behind its apparent beauty, there is an almost mathematical precision. In the 18th century, when European explorers discovered it, they were so amazed by its shape that they took it to the royal gardens of England. Since then, it has become a symbol of exoticism and prosperity. Today, it adorns parks and homes around the world, but its origin remains undeniable. The wild south of Africa, where life learned to dance with the wind. In local culture, the bird of paradise flower is a symbol of freedom and hope. Its winged shape reminds us that all life seeks to ascend, even that which grows in the earth. And somehow, every flower that opens seems to contain the movement of a flight suspended, frozen in time. Compared to the serenity of the Kokia, or the fragility of the chocolate flower, this species represents the opposite: vitality, dynamism, light. It is the pure celebration of existence, the instant when the plant world dares to imitate the animal kingdom. Thus, between the African sun and the song of the birds, the bird of paradise flower spreads its wings without moving. It is the most colorful evidence that evolution not only adapts, but also creates art. 8. The bee orchid, Ophrys apifera. Europe, from the warm African valleys where the bird of paradise spreads its colorful wings. The journey now takes us to the European fields, where subtlety replaces brilliance and beauty is disguised as deception. Here blooms one of the most ingenious strategists of the plant world, the bee orchid. Its scientific name, Ophrys apifera, holds a story of natural cunning that seems written by an author with a sense of humor. At first glance, its flower looks like a bee resting on a petal. Its shape, texture, and even the sheen of its surface mimic the body of a female bee with astonishing precision. But there is no insect there, only an illusion created by the plant. When a male flies nearby, he cannot resist the lure. He approaches, vibrates with anxiety, and tries to mate with the flower. In this attempt, his body becomes covered with pollen, which he will then carry to another fake bee, unknowingly repeating the cycle of pollination. It is a perfect trap, an example of how evolution can be as ingenious as it is cruel. The most fascinating thing is that the bee orchid does not limit itself to visual deception. It also mimics the smell of female pheromones, those chemical signals that awaken the reproductive instinct in males. The flower reproduces this aroma with an almost impossible precision, to the point that the bees confuse fiction with reality. Science is still studying how a plant, without a brain or senses, manages to copy a chemical message from the animal world so accurately. In the spring meadows, where other flowers depend on color or nectar, the bee orchid relies on deception. It offers no reward whatsoever. Its strategy is purely psychological, if one can speak of vegetable psychology. The result, however, is the assured survival of its species. The bee orchid is, in a way, a small parable of nature. It demonstrates that beauty is not always innocent. Beneath its charming appearance lies an evolutionary intelligence that plays with the senses of its visitors. Unlike the bird of paradise flower, which seduces with cooperation, this one does so with manipulation. And both work. In Europe, this flower is revered as a symbol of the unusual. It is found in open meadows, among tall grasses and chalky soils. However, its delicate ecological balance makes it vulnerable. A change in the bee population or in soil conditions can condemn it to silence. Therefore, every specimen that blooms is almost a miracle, an act of balance between instinct and chance. To contemplate a bee orchid is to witness a masterpiece of natural deception. In its small floral theater, the insects are involuntary actors, and the flower, an invisible director guiding the scene with precision. Thus, between apparent innocence and the most refined strategy, nature once again reminds us that the art of survival can take the most unexpected forms. And while the European meadows vibrate with the buzz of confused bees, the journey continues toward regions where beauty takes another form: extreme rarity. A flower that only opens every few years, as if time itself had to ripen to see it. The next protagonist seems a living myth: the Kadupal flower, the one that blooms only in the darkness of the night. 9. The Kadupal flower, Epiphyllum occipitalum, Sri Lanka. From the sunny meadows of Europe, where the bee orchid gently deceives, the journey now plunges into the tropical gloom of Sri Lanka, where the night holds a secret so fragile it can barely be told. In that damp, fragrant silence blooms the Kadupal flower, an apparition that happens only once a year, and always under the discreet gaze of the moon. Its scientific name, Epiphyllum oxypetalum, sounds technical, but its fame is almost mystical. No one can cultivate it for exhibition, because its life is an instant. It is born at nightfall, slowly and hypnotically opens its white petals, and when the first ray of sun touches the horizon, it vanishes. In a few hours, all its splendor becomes a memory. That is why, in Sri Lanka, they call it the flower of the fleeting soul. It has no price on the market, because no one has been able to sell it. It withers before it can be cut from the stem. Its beauty does not belong to commerce, but to time. Every flower is a secret ceremony. Those lucky enough to witness it claim that its perfume, sweet and dense, transforms the air into something almost sacred. It is an aroma that seems to mix jasmine, vanilla, and an echo of humid forest, impossible to describe without feeling nostalgia. What is fascinating about the Kadupal is its emotional rarity. Most flowers compete to last, to perpetuate their color or fragrance. This one, on the other hand, chooses to exist for only a few hours, as if eternity were not its purpose. Its brevity makes it a living metaphor. The purest beauty is also the most ephemeral. Scientists explain its cycle as an adaptation to the nocturnal environment. By blooming at night, the Kadupal attracts its natural pollinators, moths and bats, creatures that live under the stars. But beyond biology, there is something profoundly human in its story. In the villages of Sri Lanka, it is said to bloom when the world is at peace, and that its opening heralds good fortune. No one dares to cut it. To do so would be like interrupting a dream. What science calls ephemeral, tradition calls sacred. In fact, some Buddhist monks consider it a symbol of non-attachment, the flower that teaches one to admire without possessing. Every year, people wait at the temples for the night a Kadupal decides to open. There is no precise calendar, only premonitions. And when it happens, the news spreads from house to house like a blessing. Seeing it bloom is an experience that is not repeated. The white petals expand to reach almost 30 centimeters in diameter, like a moon sprouting from the stem. The entire plant seems to hold its breath. And then, without warning, dawn erases it. What remains is the memory, and a perfume that lingers for just a few minutes longer, like a kind farewell. In a world obsessed with conserving, collecting, and repeating, the Kadupal flower is a silent rebellion. Its message is simple. The most beautiful thing cannot always be kept. And perhaps that is why its beauty is so impactful. Thus, on the island of Sri Lanka, as the sun awakens the forest again, the Kadupal dissolves with the same delicacy with which it appeared. Its cycle is over, but its legend remains. 10. The Parrot's Beak, Lotus bertholletii, Canary Islands. From the dark jungles of Asia, where the Kadupal flower opens and dies in the same breath, the journey now leads us toward an archipelago of fire and wind, the Canary Islands. There, in a territory where the sea meets the lava and the sun seems relentless, a flower that defied oblivion survives. It is called the Parrot's Beak, and its scientific name, Lotus bertholletii, pays homage to the elegance born in the toughest places. Its shape is unmistakable, a spiral of red, curved petals that precisely mimic the beak of a parrot in full flight. It is a perfect illusion, so lifelike it seems about to squawk. This resemblance is no accident. Nature, a master of adaptation, designed its shape to attract a very particular pollinator. The Canary Island sunbird, a long-beaked bird that disappeared centuries ago. Since then, the flower lost its original companion, and almost vanished with it. For decades, it was declared extinct. No one saw it, no one found it. Botanical guides mentioned it as a floral ghost, a memory of what once was. But nature, stubborn and creative, does not surrender so easily. In the 90s, a group of botanists climbed the volcanic cliffs of Tenerife and discovered something amazing. A few specimens of the parrot's beak were still there, clinging to the rocks, growing where almost nothing else could. It was as if the flower had decided to hide on the edges of the world, awaiting its moment to return. Today, it is cultivated in specialized nurseries, and although it no longer depends on its ancient pollinator, humans help it multiply, perpetuating a species that refused to disappear. What is fascinating about this flower is not only its shape, but its resilience. It lives in poor soils, under intense sun and constant wind. Its silver stems crawl over the stone, reflecting the light as if they were made of metal. And among that dry brilliance, the red flowers emerge, ignited like embers on volcanic ash. In that contrast, life seems to declare itself invincible. The parrot's beak reminds us that beauty does not always arise in abundance. Sometimes it emerges on the margins, in places where nothing should grow. Every curved petal is an affirmation of existence, an act of resistance against oblivion. And in its shape of a bird trapped in the flower, it seems to pay tribute to the lost alliance between plant and pollinator. An evolutionary love interrupted, but not forgotten. Today, those who visit the Canary Islands can see the parrot's beak hanging from terraces or gardens, its red flowers swaying with the Atlantic wind. Few know the history they hide, a story of extinction avoided, of silent survival, and of a beauty that found its refuge on the edge of the abyss. Thus, while the waves crash against the rocks and the salty air covers the slopes, the parrot's beak continues to bloom in its natural fortress. It is a reminder that life, even when cornered, always finds crevices through which to breathe again. 11. The Middlemists, Red, China, and United Kingdom. From the volcanic slopes of the Canary Islands, where the parrot's beak clings to life with the strength of a promise, the journey now takes us toward an almost impossible rarity. A flower so scarce that its existence seems like a rumor. It is called the Middlemist's Red, and only 2 specimens live today on the entire planet. Not one more. Its history begins in China, over 2 centuries ago. It flourished freely there, a camellia of intense red that adorned the imperial gardens. Its color was so pure, so saturated with life, that poets compared it to the blood of dawn. However, its destiny changed when an English botanist named John Middlemist took it to London in 1804 as an exotic gift. Unknowingly, he was saving the species, because in its native country, the flower disappeared. No one ever saw it again. The Chinese gardens lost their crimson brilliance, and for generations it was believed extinct. Only one small shrub survived on the other side of the world, in a greenhouse at Chiswick House, in the United Kingdom. There, between glass walls and controlled humidity, it continued to bloom in silence, like a relic of a world that no longer exists. The second specimen appeared centuries later, in a greenhouse in New Zealand, a direct descendant of the same plant. Thus, today, humanity guards just 2 Middlemist's red flowers, one in Europe, one in Oceania. There are no fields, no jungles, no hills where it grows naturally. Only these 2 fragments of life, cared for as if they were jewels. But the most curious thing is that, despite its name, the Middlemist's red is not entirely red. Its tone varies between carmine and pink, with nuances that change depending on the light. Sometimes it seems to ignite like an ember. At others it fades until it becomes almost white. That ambiguity, that capacity to transform before the eyes, gives it an ethereal quality, as if it refused to be entirely understood. In the gardens where it blooms, its appearance does not go unnoticed. Botanists observe it with a mixture of pride and fear. Every new bud is a miracle, every petal a reminder of what could be lost. There is no other flower in the world with such a small population and at the same time so closely guarded. It is, literally, the rarest flower on the planet. More than a plant, the Middlemist's red is a testament to fragility. It represents everything that humanity has been on the verge of destroying, but also that which can still be saved. Its survival depends on the care, patience, and devotion of those who protect it. There is no public spectacle, no possible commerce, only the stillness of the greenhouse and the certainty that life, even when it seems on the verge of oblivion, can continue to beat. In a way, this flower lives on the threshold between existence and disappearance. It is a bridge between centuries, between continents, between what we were capable of losing and what we still know how to preserve. Thus, as the sun filters through the glass and touches its petals for an instant, the Middlemist's red blooms in silence, reminding us that there are beauties so rare that they can only survive if we learn to look without possessing. 12. The saffron flower, Crocus sativus, Asia Minor. From the greenhouses where the Middlemist's red blooms like a guarded secret, the journey now transports us toward the luminous fields of Asia Minor, where wealth does not shine in gold, but in petals. There grows a tiny flower that has moved empires and fortunes. The saffron flower, whose scientific name, Crocus sativus, encapsulates centuries of history, labor, and fragrance. At first glance, it looks like a simple flower. 6 purple, soft, almost translucent petals that open at dawn. But inside, it holds a treasure. From its heart emerge 3 red threads, the stigmas, so fine they look like strands of fire. It is these that, once dried, become saffron, the most valuable spice in the world. The extraordinary thing is not just its beauty, but the precision of its creation. To obtain a single kilo of saffron, more than 150,000 flowers are needed. Each one must be harvested by hand, one by one, in the early hours of the morning, before the sun wilts the petals. It is a ritual of patience, a dance between time and delicacy. For centuries, saffron has been a symbol of luxury, medicine, and mysticism. The ancient Persians used it as perfume and as a pigment to dye royal robes. In classical Greece, it was offered to the gods, and in the Middle Ages, it was so coveted that its trade even caused wars. Its warm, deep aroma has something hypnotic about it, a mixture of earth and honey that seems to concentrate the very essence of dawn. But behind its exorbitant price hides a fragile, short-lived flower. The Crocus sativus does not exist in the wild. It is a domesticated species that depends completely on humans to reproduce. It does not produce fertile seeds, so its survival depends on the corms that farmers replant year after year. It is literally a flower that lives thanks to our hands. Its violet color contrasts with the intense red of the stigmas, as if nature had decided to combine serenity and passion in the same creature. Contemplating it, one understands why saffron has been called vegetable gold. Not only for its price, but for the reverence it inspires. The curious thing is that, despite its fragility, the saffron flower has conquered the planet. Today it is cultivated from Iran to Spain, from Morocco to India. But its origin, like a secret kept among petals, remains Asia Minor. That region where Europe and Asia intertwine, and where the history of flavor began to be written. Every thread of saffron is a story in miniature, a promise of color and aroma that has survived the centuries. And every flower, with its brief life and purple splendor, reminds us that true value is not always in quantity, but in intensity. Thus, between careful hands and fields dyed violet, saffron continues to bloom like a living jewel, an offering from the earth that, though tiny, has left an indelible mark on human culture. 13. The monkey orchid, Dracula simia, Ecuador and Peru. From the violet fields of saffron, where human patience and natural delicacy intertwine, the journey now leads us toward the cloud-shrouded mountains of Ecuador and Peru, territories where the fog seems eternal, and the forests rise like living cathedrals. In those places where light barely filters through, a creature that seems straight out of a Dali dream blooms, the monkey orchid, known to science as Dracula simia. The name is no exaggeration. Its petals, folded with a precision that defies logic, draw the perfect face of a small monkey. 2 dark spots look like eyes, a curve forms the nose, and a rounded opening suggests a mischievous smile. The resemblance is so exact that, upon seeing it, it's hard to believe there isn't an artist behind its design. But no, it is pure nature, playing at surrealism. This orchid grows in the humid forests of the Andes mountain range, between 1,000 and 2,000 meters of altitude. It prefers the shadows, the cold air, and the silence. It clings to moss-covered trunks and blooms when the environment is almost a whisper. It does so without rush, because in its kingdom, time seems to dissolve between water droplets and steam. The most surprising thing, however, is not its shape, but its aroma. Unlike other orchids that smell of vanilla or honey, the Dracula gives off a perfume of fresh oranges, so citrusy and bright that it contrasts with the gloom of the forest. It is an unexpected, almost humorous detail, as if the flower took pleasure in breaking the expectations of whoever finds it. Its rarity is such that, for a long time, it was believed to be a local legend. The first explorers who described it were dismissed as exaggerators. An orchid with a monkey face? Until photographs and specimens confirmed the impossible. It existed, and not just one, but several species of the same genus, each with its own face. In the world of botany, the Dracula is a jewel of evolutionary eccentricity. Its shape has no direct function for its pollination, suggesting that the face is a beautiful accident, a genetic whim that resulted in art. But that doesn't make it any less fascinating. It is a reminder that evolution does not only seek efficiency, but sometimes creates beauty out of pure chance. Seeing it in its natural environment is like stumbling upon a jungle's private joke. A flower that smiles from the gloom, smelling of freshly cut fruit. Its delicacy and rarity have made it a protected species, an object of study and admiration. In a world where science seeks patterns and answers, the monkey orchid reminds us that there is also room for pure astonishment. That among the shadows of the forest, nature allows itself to laugh a little, and in that gesture, reveals its most human side. Thus, between Andean mists and citrus perfumes, the Dracula blooms in silence, a work of art without an author, a vegetal wink at the mystery of natural imagination. 14. The Chameleon Hoya, Hoya carnosa compacta, Southeast Asia. From the Andean mountains, where the monkey orchid smiles amidst mists and citrus, we descend now toward the humid and vibrant Southeast Asia, a region where plants seem to compete for the attention of the light. There blooms a creature that doesn't seem entirely natural, a flower that deceives the eye and awakens doubt, the Chameleon Hoya, known to science as Hoya carnosa compacta. At first glance, it looks like a work of porcelain. Each of its flowers, small, rounded, with a waxy texture, shines with a glow that borders on the supernatural. Its surface reflects light as if it were enameled, and its symmetry is so precise that it's hard to believe it was sculpted by nature and not by an artisan. In fact, in the tropics, they call it the living jewel, and it's not a metaphor. It looks like an ornament suspended in the air, a piece of vegetal goldsmithing. But its beauty is not limited to the visual. At dusk, the Chameleon Hoya releases a sweet, dense, almost sugary perfume that floods the environment with an air of nostalgia. It is the aroma of the ancient, of the timeless, as if each flower remembered the forests from which it came. Its scent attracts moths and small nocturnal insects, which are fascinated by its brightness and fragrance, completing a ritual that combines aesthetics with biology. The most intriguing thing about this flower is its perfect geometry. Its petals form 5 pointed stars arranged in hanging clusters, an order so exact that it seems calculated by a geometrician. Each cluster can hold dozens of flowers, all identical as if sharing a common memory. And yet, none is exactly the same as another. In its apparent uniformity, there is a slight variation that makes them unique, like hand-carved gems. The Chameleon Hoya is also famous for its ability to adapt. Hence its nickname. It can change color slightly, depending on the light, humidity, or the time that has passed since it opened. Some bloom in white and pink tones. Others acquire reddish or creamy reflections, depending on the environment. It is as if each flower interpreted the sun's reflection in its own way. In Southeast Asian culture, it is associated with patience and harmony. Those who cultivate it know that it can take years to bloom for the first time. But when it does, it rewards the wait with an almost mystical spectacle. In fact, some consider it a happy omen plant. Its flowering, they say, announces good changes in the home. Looking closely at it is like observing a mystery stopped in miniature. Its petals look crystallized, and if touched, a strange softness is felt, like warm wax. That unreal texture has earned it fame among botanists and artists. It is the flower that defies the boundary between the living and the created. Thus, suspended among twisted leaves that resemble ocean waves, the Hoya carnosa compacta blooms as a reminder that perfection can also be natural. In its tiny, shiny stars, nature reveals its ability to play with illusion and detail, like a patient jeweler working on a microscopic scale. 15. The Himalayan blue poppy, Meconopsis betonicifolia. Bhutan amidst mountains wrapped in clouds, where silence weighs more than snow, and the wind blows like an ancient prayer. An almost impossible vision blooms. The Himalayan blue poppy, or Meconopsis betonicifolia. It does not grow in gardens or accessible meadows, but in hidden corners of Bhutan, at altitudes where oxygen is scarce and the cold cuts the breath. There, where life seems to give up, this flower defies logic and climate, painting a landscape dominated by the gray of the rocks and the white of the ice with electric blue. Its color is the first thing that bewilders. It is not just any blue. It is deep, translucent, almost spiritual. The human eye, accustomed to the nuances of the sky or the sea, does not expect to find that tone in a petal. It is a blue that seems to contain its own light, a pure vibration that imitates nothing, as if nature had created a fragment of the firmament to plant it on Earth. The inhabitants of nearby villages consider it a sacred flower. They say it blooms only where inner peace reigns, and that trying to seek it without purity of spirit guarantees failure. That is why the monks who guard the regions where it grows do not reveal its exact location. For them, it is not a plant to be found, but one that manifests itself. Some even say that it can disappear from an entire valley for years, only to re-emerge without warning, as if choosing when to show itself. From a scientific point of view, the Meconopsis betonicifolia is a plant of extreme conditions. It needs low temperatures, acidic soils, and an almost impossible balance of humidity to reproduce outside its habitat. Each flower lives for just a few days before wilting, and reproducing it in captivity has been a challenge even for the most experienced botanists. Its rarity is no accident. It is the result of patient evolution in a hostile environment, where only the extraordinary survives. Those who have seen it describe a hypnotic effect. They say its color subtly changes with the light, becoming more intense at dawn and softer at dusk, as if it were breathing. In some Buddhist monasteries, monks use it as a symbol of ephemeral enlightenment, the beauty that emerges, shines, and disappears without a trace, but whose memory transforms the one who beholds it. In a way, the Himalayan blue poppy is a paradox. Fragile yet untamable, tiny yet capable of defying mountains. It represents the silent resistance of life in its purest form. In it, nature does not seek to be useful or exuberant. It simply is, with a serenity that borders on the divine. Perhaps that is why its story is so intertwined with legend. Some claim that seeing it bloom brings calm to the soul, that it is a reminder of the harmony between human beings and their environment. There are no cameras documenting it without permission, no coordinates leading to it. Only rumors, stone paths, and the certainty that, somewhere in the Himalayas, a blue flower continues to open against the wind, unwitnessed. Thus ends our tour of the rarest and most beautiful flowers in the world, with this last guardian of the secret. A flower that exists not only on Earth, but also in the imagination. A symbol of the unattainable, the pure, and that which, by its very rarity, becomes eternal.